what do you think are the main challenges here?
Okay, I think there are quite a few challenges. Firstly, that technology is still as something alien by many museums. What I usually call a wild beast. As a matter of fact, technology should be perceived as an instrument to achieve the goals. So each museum obviously has goals, preserving heritage, making it available to visitors, publicizing their existence, and so on. Technology is a tool to an end. Yesterday, for example, we were listening to a concert, and I was thinking about technology in this context. And in the end, technology is like an instrument. Yeah? A musician plays on an instrument. Everybody sees the instrument as a vector of beauty, a vector of excellence. Well, technology is exactly the same. It's a vector of excellence, a vector of beauty.
It's a tool.
Yeah. So I think psychologically there is this issue that many museums have to still overcome a little bit. So that's one thing. On the other end, it's also true that many technology providers are providing nothing but technologies when they should actually focus on providing solutions that are adapted to the needs of this particular market. So in other words, museums, heritage, and so on. Of course, in order to be able to do this, they need to understand a lot about the needs of the museums, the context in which they operate, the visitors, what does the visitor want, what type of experience is the visitor interested in, how can technology help make this experience more rich, enrich it, how can technology help in adding new layers on top of, let's say, the basic object that is on display.
To
augment, exactly. Augment the value that they get from coming to a museum.
But I think that they are different. We have different types of museums. We have big museums, small museums, and we have museums that have these days problems with funding. How technology can be involved in this problem, because we know that every museum cannot integrate all this technology related to the funding problems.
Okay, well, first of all, there are already technologies that are quite cheap, as we've seen in some presentations that we've had in our events. So that in the end, the issue is not really anymore the cost of implementing the technology as such. It is true that sometimes there is a hidden cost in terms of maintaining the technology that is often not perceived up front, and of course needs to be taken into account. There are other ways also of actually bringing down the cost. For example, smaller museums could get together and look at solutions that they could procure jointly, which would also, by the way, have an influence on pushing towards standards. Yeah, if you have, of course, every museum going for a different type of technology, at the end, nothing will be interoperable. If you go into a museum and your mobile device doesn't allow you to interact with the local technology, this may be already a problem. Having to use a different technology every time you go to another museum may also be a problem from the user experience. If the user interface is different, you've got to each time find out how it works and so on. So this may be a problem for a number of visitors. So it would be good if things could be standardized, and if museums get together and define these standards and to procure the solutions jointly, this will obviously have an influence on standards and also on prices.
And how can small companies that they are developing new technologies can cooperate between each other? maybe to go into museums together. Is this a solution?
Well, I think yes, at this level it's exactly the same problem. Many smaller companies actually have only one or two solutions that are really, catering for one specific need. Well, most museums are looking at a broader portfolio of solutions that address the entire experience of what it means to operate a museum or for a visitor to go to a museum. So that here again might be good if some of the smaller companies that are targeting this particular segment, if they got together and developed, let's say, portfolios that correspond to all these needs, as opposed to just catering for one particular aspect, such as, for example, augmented reality. I mean, again, usually you see presentations, coupons. We saw a presentation about coupons. Okay, fine, that's good, but it's just one need of the museum. So yes, smaller companies could come together, and of course, then the question is, how should we come together? Here again, there are some possibilities. Recently, I came across a project that is actually funded now by the region of Flanders, where the regional government is supporting 3 companies, local companies, that want to pool their solutions and develop a common portfolio of solutions, which will obviously be broader than what they have each on their own. Step number 1. Step number 2, that they also offer these solutions to a broader market, so not just to the local market, but also to other markets outside of their own country, and that they attract other partners as well from other countries. And all this is going as far as actually creating a new company. So these 3 companies will create a new joint company, which will be open to the participation of third parties. Okay, this is one model which I find very attractive and could also encourage the consolidation of the European industry. A number of this is not in the field of cultural heritage, but it's a model that could be used here as well.
What about from the other side, from the side of museums? Do you think that they need more education, more knowledge related to technology to know what is possible on the market?
Well, yes, obviously, if you don't know what's there, I mean, you cannot imagine what you can potentially do with it. So step number 1 is clearly to find out, to have a certain openness, curiosity, investigate, evaluate, and again, this is something that can be done, I think, jointly, because if each museum needs to do this separately, this is again going to cost a lot of money. You will have to have a dedicated person who does potentially only that. So again, here they could, for example, share the burden. They could say, okay, either we delegate some of us to carry out this function for everybody, to evaluate a number of technologies that we know that we all of us are interested in, evaluate the different solutions that exist in the market, and rate them, and then share the evaluation and the rating, so that we can all benefit from it. So that's one of the functions that I think we would like to recommend to them as well.
And what about open source technologies? You think that they can be a solution for the museums that they don't have so much funding?
Now, this is a question that theoretically, of course, open source appears to be a solution. On the other hand, open source doesn't fall from the sky either, so it needs to be developed like any other
problem of
technology.
maintenance, maybe.
Sorry?
It's a problem of maintenance.
Maintenance, of course, is an aspect of it as well. So there will be costs of development, costs of maintenance. So even if a technology is open source, it will still require maintenance and further developments, which might be linked with costs. So from my point of view, it is not so important to know whether a technology is open source or not open source. Is it the right technology for you? Does it come at the right cost? For example, Google is not open source, but it's free. I mean, many functionalities that Google is offering are free. We all use it. So I would say that for me, open source is one way of delivering solutions, which can be very positive and can be very cost effective. But it's not necessarily the only way. I wouldn't close my doors to proprietary technologies. If there are companies out there that are supplying the right type of proprietary technology at the right price, why not? After all, for example, all these technologies are to a large extent proprietary. Yeah? The computer was based on proprietary technologies, the mobile phone. Most of the technologies that we know have been proprietary technologies. So that would be my...
Yeah, we know that museums are here also for visitors. And what do you think about co-creating and about that visitors are more involved in technology solutions inside the museum, or where can we hear some kind of ideas for new collaboration?
I think visitors are definitely have a role to play in terms of becoming co-creators potentially. Absolutely, I think many visitors, as a matter of fact, are asking for a bigger role, bigger active engagement in the experience. And I think this is where the biggest opportunities actually lie. Going to a museum should not stay a passive experience as it has been up to now to a large extent, where you go and you consume something, but you can also interact with it in many different ways. Going as far as actually creating your own version of it, or using some content to create something different, combining elements, making connections between two pieces. That's the connection that you see between object A and object B is not necessarily the same as the one that I will see. So there are different layers of enrichment that can be generated by the visitors in this one.